will begin with the implementation of machine learning using AWS services. Once you log in into your console of Amazon AWS, you will see all the services listed down on this console page. You can search for the service that you want to use, or you can type it out here to find it if it's not visible at the first sight. Your recently visited services would be available here at the top of this page. Before stepping into the implementation of this demo, I would like to take you through the dataset that we have. The dataset that I have has 9,000 odd rows for which we know the target value. We will be trying to predict if a customer is going to leave the company or not. So this is the dataset that you see here, and this is for the customers of a credit card company, or you can say a bank. Using this past record history, we will build a model on this data and predict the unseen data that we have. I'll quickly take you through the columns that we have on this data set. So the first column you see is the row number, which is just a row identifier for all the records that we have. This is the customer ID, the ID of all of the customers. Then we have the surname, so the surname of the customer, credit score. Then we have the geography, where that person is coming from, the gender of the person, of the customer, the age of the customer, tenure is the time period with which the customer was associated with the company. Then we have the balance, so the balance that's there in the bank account of that person, the number of products that he has from the company. So it could be like 1 debit card, 2 credit cards, something like that. So this is another column which says if that person has a credit card or not. It's a Boolean variable. The next one that we have is the person an active member of the company? And the next is estimated salary of the person. And finally, we have our target variable, which is if that person has exited from the company in past history that we have of that customer. So this is the raw data set that we'll be working on. And another data set that we have is the prediction data, on which once our model is built, we'll be running our prediction on. For this data set, as you can see, we don't have an exited column. So this is the exited column that we'll be filling on once our model is ready. So now that we have seen the data, we'll start with connecting our machine learning service to our data source. So the first step is you go through the machine learning icon. The content is loading. So this is the console page or the landing page where you can see all the models that you have built in the past. So these are some of the models that I was trying to build. So you can see all the list of models here, and whatever objects you try to build, it could be a model, it could be a data source connection, it could be an evaluation, it could be a batch prediction, or anything of that matter. So this is, you can see the type here of the object that you have and the status of that object, creation time, completion time. You can also search any of your object that's already created by typing it here, its ID, or probably just dragging it down the page. Now we'll create a new data source for this demo. It gives me 3 ways, as we have discussed in the lecture, to connect to our data. So it's S3, Amazon Redshift, and also Amazon RDS. So first we'll see how to connect to Amazon Redshift for my input data. I click on this Amazon Redshift. For using Amazon Redshift, you should make sure that you have an active Amazon Redshift connection. For creating an Amazon Redshift connection, you can again go back to your services. To show this quickly, I'll open another console box and go to the services here. I'll click on Amazon Redshift. If I want to create a new cluster, I'll just say launch cluster. It will ask you for various details that we need to enter here. So if you have not done this previously, you can just go and check how to do this. Once your cluster of Amazon is ready, you can connect through any SQL workbench to connect to this data source. Like here, I have an SQL workbench for which I am connecting to cluster that I have created for myself. So this is the table that I have created. It doesn't have a lot of data because this is just a sample that I have created. I'll show you the structure of the table that I have created. It is the same of the data we are going to work on, and I'm calling it churn data. So it has all the columns mentioned here, and this is the structure of the table created. You can create your table from here, from typing it in statements and run it. So this is how you connect to your data source once you have an active Redshift cluster. So I'll go back and use the Redshift cluster that I've already created for this purpose. So the cluster identifier is AML Redshift. The database name that I have is my AML. I'll enter the credentials as per you specify for your Redshift cluster. I don't have a created AM role, so I'll just say create a new role. And I'll say the SQL query as whatever data I want to load from the table that I have. So for now, I'll be loading all of the data that I have in my table, shown data. So this is a simple SQL query to load all the data that I have in my table in Redshift. Once I do this, as we have discussed before, that I can specify a schema for my data to be created, or I can use another schema that I have already stored in my Amazon S3. So for now, I'll use Amazon AML to generate a recommended schema. Now, this is the Amazon S3 staging location. So once you're pulling your data from Redshift, this data would be copied to an S3 location. This S3 location can be anything that you want to specify. For the purpose of this demo, I have already created an S3 bucket, which I'll show it to you once. So I'll go into S3 and I have an S3 bucket with the name of AML samples where I have put all my data. So I'll be giving this as my staging location for Redshift. So once the data is extracted from Redshift, that file would be staged here or kept here for further processing. So I'll give the same path for this purpose. So the S3 name that I have is AML samples. Now I'll quickly verify if all the parameters that I have given are correct. You can see that Amazon is validating data and also validating schema. Once the validation is successful, we can go to the next step. So you can see the validation is successful here. We'll go to the next step. So now we see that the data has been loaded, the schema has been loaded by Amazon ML, and we'll see if it has come to the right patterns or not. So the row number is numeric, customer ID is numeric, surname is text, credit score is numeric, geography is numeric, gender is text, age is numeric, tenure is numeric, balance is numeric, number of products is numeric. Go to the next page and see the others. So has credit card is a binary as it has only 0 and 1 values. Is active member is binary because again it has 0 or 1 value. Then we have the estimated salary, which is again numeric, and the target variable, which is exited, which is again binary. So the data looks fine to me, and we can continue. We can select our target variable from here. But since I told you that I have not stored a lot of data in Amazon Redshift, we'll not be using this method. We'll instead go and see the other method, which is Amazon S3, and how to connect to that. So we'll cancel this and see the other process through which we can create a data source. I'll create a new data source, click on this, and I'll go to S3 where my data is stored. So we have discussed about keeping files in S3 which could be in a splitted format or in a direct one single file. So for this demo, I have splitted the file and kept in this folder which is torn data. If I go in this, you can see there are 9 files splitted with almost the same size, so they will be having almost the same number of records. So we'll be using this folder structure. I'll go back to my S3 location. It's asking me for S3 location where I have my data. So I'll again put the bucket name that I have, just ML samples. After that, I have it in churn data. So this looks fine. I'll verify this. So it will trigger you for granting permission on your Amazon S3 location. So for reading, have to grant this permission. So I'll say yes. Data source name has been already set by AML. You can give it any other name that you want to, but I'll be keeping it as churn data. So the validation is successful.